Perfect. Yeah, you're all set to go, Chirag. The stage is
All
yours.
right. Good. Good. Okay. Well, look, welcome everyone to the MS Copilot and Viva Days. Thank you for having me, and want to say thanks to Vignesh, Tushar, Lalit, Shrusti, and many other folks who's put this event together. So I really appreciate for inviting me back. And this is in fact my second, I think, second or third time. So yeah, I think for some of you this might be the first time. If it is, then well, welcome to my session. So my session is about the Microsoft Viva, which is all about that. Pretty much is the whole day, isn't it? Really. But specifically, we're looking at the essentials side of things, right? So, we all know from, at least from Microsoft marketing perspective, that, it's there for the employee experiences. It's meant to work in the flow of your work. So you're not having kind of add-ons or creating any new applications or anything to look after your employees and the team's habits, behaviors, productivities, and all these things. So it's a very kind of a, I mean, obviously 40 minutes or thereabouts. So it's a lot to go through. So a lot of it is demo. You'll be pleased to know I've got a few slides, and I've got the links on the slides. So everything that I'll present today will you'll be able to sort of take that away and be able to kind of get into your journeys on that. So when I put this session together, really it was more just to kind of make sure that in your organization, you might be using Microsoft 365 in a variety of ways. You might not have all the apps and services switched on. So really, the key takeaway, if you were to take from this session, will be to get the most value out of your Microsoft 365 environment. I appreciate there's probably a lot of stakeholders in your organization. A lot of people look after different services. I see it all the time where there's the shortage of skill sets in terms of looking after the enormity of the Microsoft 365 environment. So this is really also targeting to those administrators and the in IT, where they have to be able to be proactive to understand how Microsoft Viva services hangs together and in what ways you can enable and roll out those services. So we'll cover some of those elements of it. But then much of the demos will be to go around picking some of my favorites, if you like, in terms of the functionalities within your Microsoft Viva environment. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chirag Patel. I live and work in London, and I've been working generally with Microsoft services for almost about 20 years now. Kind of started off as a SQL Server DBA back in early 2000s, and really that's where SharePoint kind of came to back in 2002. To look after the SharePoint team services, and then from there on, with various roles within the SharePoint space, kind of just looked after all the environments, customers, implementations, and so forth. So my background is kind of varied in that sort of tech, and most of the time it's the kind of projects I'm working on is it's kind of the migrations or increasing the value of the investments in your Microsoft 365 by rolling out some additional services. But I'm also a certified trainer, so I deliver SharePoint, Teams, Microsoft Viva courses, as well as Microsoft Purview. So big variety there, and I also work with various Microsoft partners to help them either write proposals or work with their customers to deliver implementations as well. So a lot of things. Viva Explorers, you've probably seen that quite a few times. So I'm one of the characters, if you like, Viva enabler. Personally believing that you got to just switch things on, try it out, to see if it's good for you, if it works. Otherwise, you just don't find out. But obviously, be cautious when you roll things out in that manner. Yeah, I also organize Microsoft 365 UK user group as well. So just text Chirag is the best way to get to me, so you can then access all the links, slides, and everything else, previous session recordings, and so on. Okay, so enough about me. Microsoft Viva. So we know it's an industry term. It's an employee experience platform. I've got all these apps that I use, on a day-to-day basis. I might have more applications if I'm working within Dynamics and maybe some third-party applications. But typically, when you go into your office.com, clicking on your app launcher, you will see generally these kind of apps, right? Collaboration, productivity apps as well. There's a couple in there, obviously, like Engage, which is formerly Yammer, and then you got Insights, Viva Insights. So some of those things, they're kind of part of your existing license, whether that's E1, E3, E3, E5, or if you're an Academy, right? But the whole idea here is that not only to just, this is not to overwhelm any employee or the team with already that you have added work, but it's kind of really giving you the tools, new tools, but still working within your existing environment to be able to help you and your teams to really kind of fulfill your potential, right? So that's not just saying to become just more productive, but also being able to look after your interests, being able to search intelligently, being able to discover information intelligently without having to work out where the information may reside, right? So you kind of bring in those experiences around the Viva side of things, right? So it's a bit more than apps and services, but when you look at it in terms of how Viva is actually delivered, right? So you have these capabilities, right? So it's all about communicating and collaborating, if you like, with your teammates, communities in a variety of ways. So you might be using Teams, Viva Engage, and so forth. Other parts is losing your analytics, right? So we use emails, we use chats, all these things. We know behind the scenes, we have Microsoft Graph, the data layer of Microsoft 365, in which there are various signals and all kind of telemetry of our environment, which basically pulls all that data for us to be able to give us meaningful ability to analyze our habits, but also being able to then go and be able to provide, exchange feedback, right? And more importantly, confidentially as well. Goal setting, management, yes, and I know there are some sessions today, so you've probably seen some of them. If not, they'll probably be coming around. So, you want to try and be able to track the work we do. Now, we use a number of different systems. We can use Excel, we can use Monday.com or whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter. But if you don't have that kind of way to really track efficiently across the organization, then you really end up having multiple systems to try and do things, to manage those things. So, you have a framework here in which you can operate to manage your company's goals and objectives and so on. Learning and knowledge management is another area, part of the employee experience. So yes, we do have subscriptions to be able to go and tune into various courses and so forth. Viva Learning, if you like, which is part of this area, brings all that together. But combine that with the knowledge management side of things too. And then last but not least is the role-based experiences. So these are something very specifics, right, around in addition to your normal capabilities you have. You got about 10 in there, 10 apps. In actual fact, it's actually 9, but you've got the reason why you got 10 in there because in the employee communications, you got Viva Amplify, right? So, you got that part as well and the other applications. So you have all these applications that's been broken down into those various capabilities. So essentially, each of these apps have got that particular function. So there's various guides, various examples, various use cases that really caters for. But this is the kind of questions you have to think about, that when you want to surmise your employee experience, then how are you going to roll these things out and in what order, right? So there is no real definition here. It's what works for you and for your organization in terms of how you're going to roll some of these services and therefore these applications to be able to roll those out. We'll look at this in the demos anyway, so we'll go into those details there. Now, I don't know if you can see on the screen or not, but there are some dotted lines here, right? You got Viva topics within learning knowledge management. And that one, is basically, as some of you might know, is retiring, right? So it's had a bit of a short lifetime, if you like. I think it's a brilliant service from Microsoft Viva side of things to be able to at least tap into your knowledge management capability to be able to surface that information wherever you are, Teams, or SharePoint, or wherever it is. And then you got Viva Cells, which obviously got kind of become part of the overall Microsoft Copilot story. So that Viva Cells is now part of the Microsoft Sales Copilot. So in a way, it's kind of all that, in addition to your day-to-day works that you do, there are some changes that are happening in Microsoft Viva systems itself. So very, it should be kind of just keep an eye on that, things that might happen, but constantly there's a lot of technologies and services being rolled out into that. Here are some examples. I won't go through in each of those details there, but again, if you're looking for those specific areas in which these applications that you can use, so you've got things like, Viva Connections and Viva Engage, in a way that where it is obviously it's an evolution to where SharePoint and Yammer capabilities were, right? But you can do a lot more now. Being able to share knowledge through, the answers, Viva Answers, and so forth. And some of these are premium capabilities in terms of the licensing side of things. We'll touch that briefly later on. But again, when you look at Viva Insights, you're not just dealing with your personal insights that you get through your emails, or even simply just accessing through your teams. But you've got, in addition to that, you've got your managers, your leaders, and also you've got the advanced insights capabilities, right, to be able to tap in to those analytics. Viva Glint, Viva Pulse, haven't got much on that today to show you, but again, it's something in that region. If you really kind of want to go into to understand your employees, the engagement of it, the feedback mechanisms, then obviously those have been coming. It's been there for some time now and kind of come into our Microsoft Viva ecosystem, right? So take a look at that, and I'll put the links there as well, so you can get a bit of more background info into those areas. In an IT point of view, right? So if you look at it, right? So where does all this data come from, right? So it's slightly old. This particular slide is one of my favorites. I use it to my customers when I'm presenting Microsoft Viva. In a way, all your data is still there, right? However you look after it, however way it's secure and compliance, all down to you as your organization, then things will only surface based on what your controls are placed. Look at Viva Connections, we know clearly makes use of SharePoint, Yammer, Viva Engage, which is what is now the feeds and everything else you get into it, stream videos, all that comes right inside your Viva Connections, essentially inside your Microsoft Teams, right? So if you're using terminologies like intranet and all those things, that's a great example of where you can actually have that translated from SharePoint into Viva Connections inside Teams, right? Viva Topics, won't touch a great deal on that, but it makes a good use of your content inside your SharePoint, and then being able to surface that experiences in Outlook, Teams, and so forth, but also even in Microsoft Search, if there are, and in the results you might get if there is a topic that already exists in there. Insights uses obviously Exchange Online, Teams, formerly Workplace Analytics, all that brings into that single experience. So in a way, all that hard work from a Viva point of view is already there, right? So looking at that from an integration point of view, if we then jump over to the data source and the compliance, so how does that get into, what is the compliance posture, if you like, looks like, right? So you got a number of these apps in Microsoft Viva, which kind of derives from some of the key sources. So we know Yammer SharePoint is there, but look at things like Viva Sales Goals and even Viva Learning, right? It's making use of Azure, right? So especially with Viva Goals, you're looking at things like Azure Synapse, you're looking at blob storage. So if you're using Viva Goals and if you're kind of exporting the dashboards of the data inside the Viva Goals, that goes and puts into the blob storage, right? Using also Cosmos DB, right? In order to put all your goals and objective results and everything else. So think about that in terms of your various data sources you've got. And then obviously you got SharePoint, which is the key areas in there, which covers not just Viva topics, but learning and connections, as well as Exchange for Viva Insights. Just a couple of slides before I go into the demo side of things. And then the other thing you want to think about is some of you might be global admins, some of you might be just business leaders, then what kind of roles are we looking at, right? So, pretty much there's an admin role, right, for every app you've got there. All the apps, they're pretty much obviously surmounted by the global admin of the M365 tenant, as well as your team's admin, right? So all those roles you have, there are some specifics roles in there. And again, there's a good descriptions as to what those roles are, what they do. And if you look at things like, say, Viva Engage right at the end of this slide, you got something roles like Engage admin. You got answers admin, like your knowledge manager, right? So you have all those roles to consider. That these are not really technical roles per se, business roles, right? So you want to think about who in your business might be able to look after your company-wide collaboration platform for Viva Engage and being able to manage the capabilities in there. I keep looking to the left because I've got the chat over there. So if you have any questions during this time, feel free to just post them in the chat, and I'll make sure you have enough time at the end to ask questions as well. Yeah. All right. And then last but not least is the setup of it, right? So in your tenant, based on your licenses you might have, you will see some of these things switched on. And the setup is quite straightforward. In fact, we'll probably just go straight into there, and we'll kind of just go in between the setup side of things in terms of how best to design and implement, but also look at the experience side of things on the demo itself for the Viva. Okay. So let's have a look. So I'm using the Contoso Electronics, which most of you probably have seen that by now with all the demos that goes in here. So as a user, when you come into here, you're kind of going into your Microsoft365.com, accessing your apps in this variety of ways. But I'm going to just go straight into Teams. And kind of just pretty easy to type in there. So just go in there. I just want to quickly show you all some of the apps in there, and we'll kind of just jump in between the apps. So the first one, right, on the left-hand side, I've got Viva Connection. So these are all using, as if you're a Teams administrator, you're using your standard Teams policies to target who gets the apps and what policies you apply to those apps, right? So when you look at Viva Connections, this is coming purely from within the SharePoint environment, right? So you got your dashboard page in there as well, all the web parts connecting to it. You got the resources and everything else. So this is your kind of a Viva home, if you like, right? In which you can then access various other Viva apps and services. So based on your license, your roles, permissions, you may see some and not all, right? So that's kind of like, if you like, another menu system within your Viva systems there. If I go and click on feed, then this is obviously coming from a variety of sources. You got things like, there's probably not much news in there, but anything that's for me, all kind of, not just the engaged feeds or whatever, but anything that's to do with files that's been opened, all kind of getting amalgamated into there as well. So very few files for meeting insights, if there's any particular insights or things, and in my network, to who I'm basically following and so forth, right? So all that kind of comes very easily into your feed side of things. If I click on the H over there, the icon there, that's the icon for this particular landing side, intranet side of things. Again, I will not go into great detail because you've probably seen a lot of it. Standard SharePoint site with all the engagement that you have in order to design your SharePoint sites in a way that's highlighting various content, files, through the use of web parts, everything else. So nothing changes from your SharePoint front except you designate this particular SharePoint site as a home site, and then it comes into your Viva Connections experience. Okay. Few icons there, so you can share and all those things, and then you can jump back to the Viva the dashboard there as well, the connection. So very nice and easy way to swap around and being able to at least establish this early on in your environment if you're not using this at all yet. Going to jump onto the setup guide. So if I go to my setup guide, and this is something I came across a few months ago, probably a few weeks ago. I think it's brilliant because up until now I used to take a lot of screenshots, right? And you might have noticed some of my previous slides. It's kind of hard work to take sometimes some of these things. So it's a website, setup.cloud.microsoft. It helps if you're signed in with your admin account, so that anything that you see in the setup guides, it will take you straight onto that particular configuration areas, right? So I've got a set of guides for the entire Microsoft 365, but the one that I'm interested in here is for Microsoft Viva, right? So I can see there's all the other apps and things in there. So I can just go ahead and click on Microsoft Viva, and then in there it's actually saying I've got about 9 Viva guides. So these are all technical admin related guides. So if I go into the Viva Connections guide, it's a nice wizard. So this is not connecting to my tenant, but it's basically mimicking that documentation in just that ways. Gives you a nice little overview as to what the steps are in order to enable Viva Connections. So you can see there's quite a number of steps in there, and it kind of just walks you through that particular area to be able to guide how to create these things. You can go up and down, without having to fill in anything at all. So it gives you a bit of a feel as to what this setup is going to look like, roughly, what the effort might be required, any licensing requirements, for example, the roles as well. So very good ones there, and I can go ahead and say click assign roles, and it'll give you more information. So it's a very nice way to administer your Viva apps services. So this is just for the Viva Connections there, right? So I'm going to just cancel that. Go to the next one, which is, let's go into Viva Topics, for example. So in Viva Topics, you have various roles to consider. So if I look at quickly the overview here, looking at the licensing side of things as well as the security and compliance. So if you're using sensitivity labels and you've got highly confidential sites, for example, you can uncheck those in a way to be able to not come in your Viva Topics itself, right? So for those of you, if you're going to use, if you already have it, and again, it's your choice whether you go into the areas of using the topics. Then if I go into, let me just go back to SharePoint. If I go to SharePoint, go to my Viva Topic Center, which is a hub area where all your pages, so it's standard SharePoint pages, you get in there. And then go into my pages there, I can see all my topics that are related in there. So in a way, I can go to my managed topics there. These are kind of self-discovered. They come about. And if you think that they're good to be published as a knowledge article, if you like, you can go ahead and publish them, right? It's a standard SharePoint page mechanism there, right? So if I go and click on, say, project title there within the SharePoint, I get topic card experiences, people who are connected to it, key files, resources connected to it. So all those things, including related topics. So you get all that quick shot there. Go into view details, and I'll get further more views within that. So you're not limited within SharePoint from that front, because I could go into the Teams and go into my chat, and if I'm just talking to somebody else, maybe say Alex, for example, then I could say, please check. Let's pick project title. So you have to put hashtag for this, obviously, for it to be able to recognize. As I'm typing that, you can see all my topics are coming up in there. And if I can just click on there, then it'll just go and put a bit like a hyperlink in there, right? But what I also wanted to show you very quickly there is that you can actually go and click on that arrow there, and then inside Teams, I can see same view as I saw in SharePoint and see more detail about that project title, what it's all about, and so forth, right? So it's very easy to kind of integrate in between those experiences. That's very just quick tour on the Viva topics, but like I said, it's retiring February next year. Some of the services will still be there, obviously. So the general direction for this is that you start using Viva Engage, the question and answers, to try and capture your knowledge management capabilities in there as you progress forward in that areas. So you got that. And then you've also got Viva Insights. So that's another app. Now within here, go to Viva Insights. If I can find it, if it's not there, then we can just have one. There it is. And that's part of the thing, isn't it? When these apps get filled up, so sometimes you lose that, but you can have them pinned if you wanted to, right? So these are kind of, if you like, the various behaviors and habits that you have around it. Again, this is probably just one part of it, looking at personal insights, right? We got things like the well-being in there in terms of average collaboration hours per the group that you can define as a company, who's in that particular group there. Scroll down, you got all the other things like sending praise to your colleagues, tracking your progress for the day based on your actions. And it's not just read-only, but you can do all sorts of things and interact with that. Productivity-wise, multitasking hours recommended for you, and so forth. The bit I wanted to show you was the advanced insights. So if I go to that particular area, so this is the URL for it. Again, this is license-based premium subscription for this. But if you go to Viva Insights, the advanced version of it, then here you have the whole range of reports around the adoption side of things as well, linking with Power BI and so forth. So I'm logged in as Deborah here. But you will see that, if I look at my analysis side of things, I got all these various kind of queries, if you like, available, ways of working, growth, inclusion, meeting effectiveness. So these are not kind of really defined by me, right? It's kind of there for you. But again, you can define your own if you wanted to. If I go into ways of working as an example, right? So again, if you're in here, you don't know all the data where things are, you don't need to worry about it, right? Because that's all happening inside your environment. So you can set up your queries in that ways, and you can see there's a note there that you need Power BI desktop. So there are some sample reports in which you can see to get to that reports. But this query comes already with predefined matrix, right? So if I just quickly zoom into that, you can see things like the channel message hours, after hours, email hours, all kinds of stats, signals, everything else is being recorded in there. And so you can pull all that data and then be able to see that kind of information very easily. I can go and add matrix further to that. So here I've got those three selected anyways, but you can see how rich and how comprehensive it can get. So it needs quite a bit of time, if you like, just to understand some of these things. But if I pick external collaboration there, check that one there, and then go at the top, just you can see it's already put those filters in there, right? So it's going to look for things like external unscheduled call hours. And the reason why this goes in that data here, because we want to try and understand where we spend our time doing the work, right? So that we can improve things and make things better for ourselves and the team. So hence this kind of reporting capability in Viva Insights really help. And you got all those things there, external meeting hours as well, and so forth. There is a description for each of these things, and the easiest way you can do that is just by hovering around that particular area there. So external one-to-one meeting hours is basically number of hours a person with only one other person from outside the company, right? So if you're looking for definition and things, then that's what you're looking at. Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of highlight that for you so you can have a look. So if you're looking towards that, then definitely do explore that. And then you can run that report and then see what's in there. You got metric rules there as well. So again, you can have some exclusions. You can decide whether to include or exclude some of those things, and then you can have those things published in there as well. Yeah. Okay, so if I go to the setup guide, back to here. So that one there for Viva Insights, there's quite a bit there. But if you look at it from the licensing point of view, not just letting a license plan, but obviously some of the other things there as well, some of the approaches, how you can actually organize to license these things as well. Looking at the configurations, there's the roles that you need to assign for those things. And for the advanced insights, again, there is the data hub, data connections, so uploading the CSV file, from the HR, for example. It anonymizes that data inside the Viva Insights view here, so that you obviously still get what you need to do there. Yeah. Viva Engage, have a quick look at that one. Again, for some of you who's been looking after this for some years, in terms of from Yammer perspective, you're still using the same sort of environment in there, but except you got some of the things in here which you want to think about, the Viva Engage premium application services there, right? So again, within the configuration side of things, environment survey, okay. There it goes. And then in here, you can then actually go into setting up the environment for that if you haven't already. Looking at the compliance side of things for Viva Engage. So again, have a look at that. And this is probably the key one there. If you want to get more value out of Viva Engage, the premium side of things, this is where some of the investment is actually going in. So you got already capabilities around the leadership corner as well. So the leaders being able to use the Q&A facility in there, as well as the campaigns. And I think you saw Ferdy's session prior to mine on the Viva Amplify, the multi-channel communication in various places. So have a look at some of these things, the answers as well, in order to be able to capture the contribution of the knowledge and answers and ideas around that. Okay. The next one I want to show you is Viva Goals. So Viva Goals, again, this is similar to like your other apps, same sort of things you will go through to be able to define. But there are a lot of integrations in there, right? So if you're looking things like Azure DevOps, other systems, even like Monday.com and so forth, then you can actually integrate some of these services inside your Viva Goals itself, right? So you have those things in there to look at that as well. Organization creation. So this is not just unique to one organization. You can have multiple organization units in there as well. So let's have a look. Go to Teams. And then go to Goals. And like some of these apps, they have their own service URLs. So if you don't want to access it from Teams, I normally keep a couple of bookmarks to just access some of the other services directly on the website itself. So you can do that at any point. So here, quite a populated one there, right? So you got things like, various kind of goals sort of things being set up, or organizations there, sorry. So if I go to Contoso Electronics, for example, I've got various kind of objectives, and then anything key results that I've defined. Again, this is a methodology you can use, but again, you can define everything that you want in there through the projects, dashboards, everything else in there you get. So if I just probably go into click on one of those things there, so you can see for this particular objective, publicly launch Mark 8 to establish the industry, whatever that says, then you can see that for every part of that, in this particular case, we want to achieve 10,000 pre-orders by general availability, right? So you can see that from there you can manage your objective in a variety of ways, and as to who is aligned to the ownership, the team, and essentially kind of brings all that together to be able to track all these objectives very easily. Right, if I look in key results, okay, this particular objective doesn't have one, but if you wanted to, you can add one there, and then you can define your matrix, whatever that might be, right? If I go and create another one, let's come out of this one here. Create the objective, and I can see Copilot in there as well, right? So I can go ahead and click on Copilot there, and once that, okay, that helps. Let's go and put top 100 customers. So at this point, I'm not sure what objective I want to define, but it's to do with 100 customers there. Top 100 customers, and then click on Copilot, and then that's going to try and generate some of the just using the standard generative AI capabilities to try and work out what kind of objectives can we have for this particular area of the OKRs. Hopefully that doesn't take long. So it says, okay, well, you can have things like strengthen relationships with our top 100 customers. So especially when we want to make sure that, we look after our customers in some of the tough economic times. So we might want to pick that one. If I scroll up there, then it's come back with this one, say, okay, increase revenue from our top 100 customers by 20%. And then these are the corresponding, if you like, the results are things as to how you would go about measuring those things, right? So I can say, okay, well, in this case, I'll probably go and pick this one here, increase revenue from our top 100, right? So I can just go and say save. And then it's going to try and say, okay, well, save these OKRs under this particular organization, or it could be in any other organizations that I've set up or departments. But I'll keep it as that, and everything else will just stay as is, and I'll just go ahead and save that. So that generated Copilot capabilities in there is going to now try and bring that inside the Viva goals itself. So in a way, some of that work has been done for me just like that. Yeah. It's pretty powerful once it's done that, and then you can just see that all those things will be in there already. So it says the generated OKR have been saved to there. So I can see view the saved OKRs, and I'm just going to close that, and then there we goes. Improve satisfaction of top 100 customers, increase revenue from top 100 customers by 20% and so forth. So all that is there now, right? So you can see, right, the power of that is very, very good on that front. So yeah, that's something I wanted to just kind of highlight from that particular point of view. Yeah. Any questions in the chat? Okay. All right. Okay. And then the other bits I wanted to show you was, we go, come out of this here completely. And it's the Viva, actually Viva Engage Viva already. So here I haven't got the answers sort of things, but just go into the Viva Engage. Again, I know I worked with some organizations, they use things like Facebook Workplace, right? And they don't even use something like this. And yet sometimes the organization talks about saving costs. So to me, this is very ideal. Anyone pretty much who have worked with Microsoft 365, a lot of them will use this. but it might not be used to its fullest potential, right? So you've got the basic features around things like communities, storylines, and being able to follow your colleagues, for example. And if I go to Deborah's, my storyline there, people will see things, what I've been talking about, praising people and so forth. Then I can see all that very easily through this networking side of things. Again, people connection community is obviously important as part of that experiences, but then also you got things like the badges in there as well. So there is the licensing features and that as well that has an impact on that. If you look at the some of the other ones, if I just pick one here, for example, let's say new employee onboarding, standard community space you get, and all the files, events that happens around that is all part of that SharePoint corresponding to that particular chat space in there as well. Again, the standard things around, you'll see more tabs if you have additional licenses appear for your the Q&A and the premium capabilities in there as well. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to cover off on that part. I just want to see if I've not missed Viva Learning. Actually, let's have a quick look at that Viva Learning. So that's pretty much free part of your license. However, if you are then trying to integrate, excuse me, the premium subscription, the LinkedIn content, if you're on the enterprise subscription, all that can come into here. So every individual, as part of their logged in ID, they will see what courses they kind of attending, what's their progress, and so forth. But also being able to then search into various things in there as well. So I can go and say, maybe I might want to attend the time management course for these particular areas in there. So then I can go ahead and say, mark complete once I'm done. With added features as for Viva licensing side of things, a manager can say, my direct reports can go and attend this course, and then be able to go back and forth and do that. Just a word of caution on this part is that any analytics you might have for Viva Learning, so if you're pulling from different sources, Udemy and so forth, right, then those analytics do not come into here, right? Those analytics stay in your third-party learning provider systems that you have. But this kind of makes it that one place to go to access all your learning resources in that one. So again, very similarly on that part is you basically go into your learning, Viva Learning admin side of things to be able to set that up. And again, you have knowledge administrator role who should be able to moderate some of these technical and abilities on this particular areas. Where was it? What I wanted to show you was learning sources and systems there. Yeah, so these are various places. Again, the links I've provided in there, but you got Pluralsight, Cornerstone, EDX, and so forth, right? So you got various other places, and including your own SharePoint as well, if you have any guides in there as well. All right. So yeah, I appreciate that's probably a very quick whiz tour of some of the Viva apps and services. A lot's happening, so if you keep an eye on the roadmap, and last I checked, there's around 103 things in here, which is basically kind of in development, rolling out 11 items. So if I have a quick look at that one there, then you will see that obviously, the co-pilot stuff is quite a lot happening in that part. So in there, I can see Viva Goals M365 chat plugin. That's kind of, be available later on this year. A lot of stuff happening on Viva Goals in people profile cards, September, co-pilot in Viva Learning, right? So everything is getting embedded there. And then obviously SharePoint custom fonts. So for Viva connections, that would be really awesome to see that. And then, yeah, you got various pages in there. So again, I'll leave that for you to have a look to see what sort of things is coming. And then, yeah, these are just some of the resources. everything changes and sometimes screenshots change and everything else. And there's a huge amount of resource on the Viva on the adoption.microsoft.com for all your Viva for to try and roll this out. Key part with this particular side of the systems is to involve your users early on, and it's not a technical thing by any means, but you do need to be of the right technical mindset, at least from an application point of view, who understands the organization, the culture, the people, and everything else. If we're just talking about purely as a IT administrator, exchange admin, and so forth, who doesn't know much a lot about this, then you want to make sure you have the right team to be able to roll these things out. And so with that, just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening, and hopefully you liked some of those things that you've seen. And obviously the recording of this session will be made available soon. And yeah, I guess I want to say big thanks once again to the MS Copilot and Viva Days team members. Really appreciate for taking your time out and obviously providing this for all of us, and of course the sponsors and so forth. So with that, yeah, any questions? Fire away, please. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Chirag. We are a little bit short on time, so I'll, if you have any questions, just you can ask in the chat, and Chirag will be able to answer
Certainly.
that. Yeah, and it was really, really great presentation, Chirag. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have our next speaker lined up, Anuk, and he's gonna talk about. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull the agenda in. Yeah, making your SharePoint interactive again with Viva Connections.
Hello, everyone. Let me get my presentation ready for you guys. All right, welcome everyone at this Microsoft Copilot and Viva Days 2024. It's an honor to be here, even online. It's very nice